doesn't mean we're together.
Listen.
People walk in together all the time. That don't mean that they're together.
They behind me. They gonna kill me, y'all. I'm gonna make them kill me, y'all. Today is the day I die.
The final chapter of a love story, once written in secret, was about to be broadcast to the world in a torrent of rage and heartbreak. It all began not with a bang, but with a series of quiet digital whispers, messages typed in a fit of emotion, now waiting to ignite an explosive tragedy. This was not just a breakup. It was a slow, deliberate public dismantling of a relationship, watched by an audience of thousands who had no idea they were about to witness a real-life horror story. Nadar Tapia, a podcast host and mother of two, was a woman who navigated her life with a sense of purpose. Her voice was her livelihood, a tool she used to share stories and connect with listeners. In her private life, she had shared her space and her heart with Antavius Brown for 2 years. He was a rapper and entrepreneur, a man whose public persona as Get a Brown was a bold statement of confidence. But behind closed doors, a different kind of song was playing, a discordant melody of rising tension, and a love that had run its course. The final verse of their relationship was a difficult one to write. Tapia, with a calm resolve, made a decision to end things. It wasn't a dramatic ultimatum or a furious fight. It was a simple, heartbreaking request for Brown to move out. In a quiet moment, she told him the relationship was over. It was a private conversation, a personal decision, and in her mind, a final word on the matter. She had no way of knowing that this private act of separation was about to set off a chain of public events that would forever alter the lives of everyone involved. For Brown, the breakup was not an ending but a betrayal. He was not a man to process things in private. His world was his audience. His feelings were for public consumption. His platform was social media. On Christmas Eve, a day meant for joy and togetherness, he took to Facebook. His posts were not sad or nostalgic, but threatening and foreboding. He wrote of righteousness and war, of a willingness to die for his beliefs. It was a digital declaration of war, a veiled threat that seemed to be aimed at Tapia. The online conflict became a public spectacle. Tapia's mother, sensing the danger in Brown's words, stepped into the fray. She responded to his post, a concerned mother publicly calling him out as dangerous. Her words were a warning, a desperate attempt to protect her daughter, but they only served to pour fuel on the fire. The back and forth became a digital battleground, drawing in friends, family, and strangers who watched the drama unfold. The conflict escalated from text to live video. Both Tapia and Brown, in their own spaces, went live on Facebook to share their sides of the story. Tapia used her platform to assert her independence and explain her decision to end the relationship. She spoke with a sense of self-worth and a desire to move on. Her voice was steady. But beneath the surface, the anxiety of the situation was starting to show. Brown's live streams, in stark contrast, were filled with feelings of betrayal and anger. "Today is the day I die." He spoke of the life he felt was being taken from him, his words a desperate cry for validation from an audience of thousands. He was performing his pain, turning a private breakup into a public tragedy. The viewers commented, shared, and debated, completely unaware that they were witnessing the final act of drama that was about to turn deadly. The private conflict had fully become a public affair. The emotional wounds, which should have been tended to in silence, were now on full display. The digital taunts and public accusations created an environment where the line between online drama and real-life violence was becoming dangerously thin. A breakup that began in a quiet conversation was now a viral sensation, a ticking time bomb waiting for the inevitable moment when the digital anger would become a physical, fatal reality. The crisp December air offered no comfort, only a chill that seemed to seep into the bones. It was December 28th, 2024, just days after Christmas, and the digital storm that had raged on Facebook was about to manifest in the real world. Nadar Tapia was at her apartment, the sanctuary she shared with her children, attempting to put the pieces of her life back together after the public unraveling of her relationship. She knew Antavius Brown was upset, but she couldn't have imagined the darkness he was about to bring to her doorstep. He arrived at her apartment, not as a former lover seeking reconciliation, but as a man consumed by rage. The initial exchange was a tense, strained conversation, a last-ditch attempt at dialogue that quickly dissolved into shouting. The air crackled with the remnants of their online arguments, now amplified by their physical presence. Tapia tried to maintain her composure, to reason with him, but the man before her was not the man she had once loved. He was a stranger, fueled by a dangerous blend of anger and despair. The argument escalated rapidly, spiraling out of control with terrifying speed. Tapia's children were present, their young eyes wide with fear as they witnessed the terrifying transformation of their mother's former partner. What began as a verbal confrontation quickly morphed into something far more sinister. Brown's face contorted with fury, and in a shocking, brutal instant, he drew a firearm. The sight of the weapon silenced all words, replacing them with a chilling, primal fear. Before we continue, if this story resonated with you and you want to ensure you never miss a deep dive into stories that matter, we ask for your support. Please consider hitting that subscribe button so you can come back and revisit this and other critical stories that need to be remembered. The more people who know about this case, the more awareness we can create about the dangers of domestic violence and unchecked social media rage. If you believe this story can help others, please like and share this video with your friends and family. Your simple click could be the awareness someone needs. The true value of a story like this lies in the conversations it inspires. We invite you to share your thoughts and feelings in the comments section below. What did you take away from this case? Have you seen similar situations unfold? Your comments can become a valuable space for others to learn from your thoughts and experiences, turning a single tragedy into a powerful lesson for our community. The sound of the gunshot ripped through the apartment, a deafening crack that shattered the fragile peace of the home. Tapia cried out, not just in pain, but in disbelief and horror. The bullet struck her in the leg, a searing pain that instantly brought her to her knees. Her children screamed, their innocent world suddenly stained by the brutality they had just witnessed. It was a moment that would forever define their lives, a nightmare brought to life within the walls of their own home. But the horror was far from over. Brown, with a chilling determination, wasn't finished. He didn't flee. Instead, he forced the wounded Tapia into his car, the firearm still a terrifying presence. The abduction was a desperate, illogical act, a twisted attempt to control a situation that had already spiraled out of control. With Tapia bleeding in the passenger seat, he sped away, heading toward a hospital, a twisted act of both violence and twisted concern.
We are starting tonight with some breaking news. Right now, we know the names of the suspect and the victim who died in a crash on Garners Ferry Road. This happened Saturday morning. The Richland County Coroner's Office has identified the suspect as 36-year-old Antavius Brown and the victim as 52-year-old Ryan Heyman. We're also learning new details from Columbia Police on what led up to this crash. Our Josie Frost has the details.
We saw a white Charger come flying up Garners Ferry, and we saw like the back end of his bumper messed up. So we was like, okay, he's definitely in a high-speed chase.
Jessica Anderson saw the moment police say 36-year-old Antavius Brown crashed at this intersection on Garners Ferry Road. In an incident report, the Columbia Police Department says on Saturday morning, officers were called to Cross Hill Apartments on Blossom Street for reports of a domestic-related shooting. Investigators say Brown and his ex-girlfriend got into an argument before he shot her in the leg. Police say Brown drove the victim to the Medical University of South Carolina for treatment. According to the police report, the victim told nurses Brown made threats to return to the home and hurt himself and the children inside. Police say they tracked Brown's phone to a location on Leesburg Road. After they tried to arrest him, they say Brown led Columbia Police and Richland County Sheriff's deputies on a chase, which Brown live-streamed. The report reveals Brown ran a red light and crashed into 52-year-old Ryan Heyman on Garners Ferry and Hazelwood Roads. Heyman and his dog died.
And I saw the front end of the truck go up, and I saw the bumper, and that was it. Everybody came running outside.
Anderson says there was another dog at the scene that was injured. The witnesses there quickly moved to rescue her.
We picked her up because, like I said, she was scared and we knew that she was hurt. And I tried comforting her, and we just put her in their office until we had an officer come and get her.
After the crash, the police found Brown in his car with a gunshot wound to the stomach. He later died from his injuries at the hospital. The woman who was shot is expected to survive. Josie Frost, News 19, WLTX.
Now, we did reach out to Ryan Heyman's family for an interview, but we have not heard back.
Inside the car, the terror continued. Tapia was in agony, her leg throbbing, her mind racing. Her children had just witnessed her being shot, and now she was trapped with the man who had pulled the trigger. Every bump in the road sent a jolt of pain through her. But even amidst the physical suffering and overwhelming fear, a flicker of defiance ignited within her. She knew she had to find a way to escape, a way to alert someone without alerting Brown to her intentions. As Brown drove, the tension inside the car was suffocating. He was driving her to safety, yet he was the one who had put her in danger. He spoke, perhaps tried to justify his actions, perhaps threatening her, but Tapia's mind was focused solely on survival. She subtly assessed her surroundings, looking for an opportunity, a moment of distraction, anything that could give her an advantage. She knew her life, and potentially her children's lives, depended on her quick thinking. Finally, they arrived at the hospital entrance, a beacon of hope in the midst of her personal hell. As Brown pulled up, Tapia knew this was her chance. Her heart pounded, but her resolve was firm. She would act fast, and she would not let him know what she was doing. The next few moments would determine whether she survived this ordeal or whether her story would end in the same violent tragedy that had begun in her apartment. The hospital lobby, a space meant for healing and hope, became the final stage of Antavius Brown's desperate act. He had forced Nadar Tapia into his car, a twisted act of man trying to fix the chaos he had created. As they entered the emergency room, the smell of antiseptic and the low hum of medical equipment were a jarring contrast to the violence they had just escaped. Tapia, her face a mass of pain, knew this was her only chance. As a nurse approached them, her expression a mix of professional calm and growing concern, Tapia's mind raced. She had to act quickly and subtly. The nurse was asking questions about her injury, but Tapia's eyes were locked on Brown's. She couldn't speak freely. He was standing right there, his posture a coiled spring of tension. She knew he was watching her, ready to react to any sign of betrayal. With a heart pounding in her chest, Tapia leaned in toward the nurse under the pretense of answering a question. In a voice barely above a whisper, she revealed the truth. "He shot me," she said, her voice filled with a desperate urgency. "And he's threatening to hurt my children." It was a plea, a silent cry for help that communicated the full terror of her situation in just a few words. The nurse's face didn't betray a single emotion, but her eyes hardened with resolve. The nurse, a professional well-versed in the language of distress, understood immediately. She calmly moved away, making a quick, discreet signal to her colleagues. A sense of quiet panic rippled through the staff as they began to call for hospital security and police. Tapia watched as the plan unfolded, a thin thread of hope in the sea of her terror. For the first time since the shooting, she felt a glimmer of hope that she might survive. Brown, however, was not oblivious. He was a man with a heightened sense of paranoia, and he sensed a shift in the air. The nurse's quick movements, the hushed tones of staff, it was all a signal that his control was slipping away. The rage that had driven him to hospital now turned to a desperate need to escape. He looked at Tapia, his eyes now filled with a cold fury, and with a final, terrifying glare he turned and fled. He burst out of the hospital doors, running to his car with a frantic urgency. The police, already on their way, were just pulling into the parking lot. A high-stakes chase was about to begin. Brown, now a fugitive, sped out of the hospital lot, his tires squealing as he entered the busy city streets. He was no longer just a man in a private crisis. He was a public danger, a menace to everyone on the road. The pursuit was a chaotic spectacle. Police cars, sirens blaring and lights flashing, followed in a relentless line. The city streets, once a symbol of normalcy, became a playground for a high-speed game of cat and mouse. Innocent drivers swerved and slammed on their brakes, their afternoon routines shattered by the terrifying spectacle of a car chase. The tension was palpable, a live wire running to the heart of Columbia. And in a move that defied all logic, Brown began to live stream the chase on Facebook. The digital world that had so often been his confessional and his stage was now a tool for his final act. He held his phone up, capturing the frantic race, the flashing lights in his rear-view mirror. His face, once filled with fury, was now a mask of grim finality. He spoke to his viewers, his voice a chilling echo of his past threats. "Today is the day I die," he said, his words a final, desperate admission of his intentions. The chase was a suicide mission, a final act of rage directed at the world. Brown's car weaved through traffic, a dangerous missile hurtling toward its inevitable conclusion. He was no longer trying to escape. He was trying to end it all, and he didn't care who he took with him. The lives of innocent people were nothing more than obstacles in his path, collateral damage in his final, terrifying show. The end came at a busy intersection on Garner's Ferry Road. The light was red, but Brown didn't slow down. He blew through the intersection, a final act of defiance against the rules of society, and of a life he no longer wanted to live. In that moment, a Toyota 4Runner entered the intersection. Its driver, Ryan Heyman, an innocent man simply on his way home. He never saw it coming. The collision was not a crash. It was an explosion of metal and glass, a violent, instantaneous convergence of two worlds. The sound was a deafening roar, a terrible crescendo that marked the end of two lives. The wreckage was a horrific sight. Brown's car was a crumpled mess, its metal shell twisted and unrecognizable. Heyman's 4Runner was equally destroyed, a testament to the sheer force of the impact. The pursuit was over, but the tragedy was just beginning. The chase had ended, but it had taken an innocent life with it. Police and emergency services swarmed the scene. The chaos of the chase was replaced by a grim, methodical silence. They first attended to Heyman's vehicle, their faces a mask of solemnity as they made the grim discovery. Heyman and his dog, both innocent victims, had died instantly in the collision. It was a senseless loss, a tragedy born out of private conflict that had spiraled into public violence. Then, they turned their attention to Brown's car. They found him inside, still alive but critically wounded. He had shot himself in the stomach, a desperate and final act of self-destruction. The gun, the same weapon he had used to shoot Tapia, lay on the seat beside him. The officers worked quickly, their professionalism overriding the anger and frustration they must have felt. They had to save the man who had just taken an innocent life. Brown was rushed to the hospital, the very same hospital he had fled from just minutes before. The doctors and nurses, unaware of the full story, worked to save his life, but his injuries were too severe. The gunshot wound, combined with the catastrophic injuries from the crash, was too much. He died at the hospital, his final moments spent in the place he had so desperately tried to escape. In the end, the tragedy of the case of Antavius Brown left a trail of emotional wreckage and innocent lives lost. The private conflict had been a public affair, a digital spectacle that ended in real-world carnage. Ryan Heyman, a man with a life and a future, became a heartbreaking footnote in a stranger's suicide mission. His story and the life of his innocent dog were cut short by the unchecked rage of a man who turned his pain into violence. But amid the wreckage, there was a glimmer of hope. Nadara Tapia, the woman at the center of the conflict, survived. She and her children, who had witnessed the terror firsthand, were safe. The violent chain of events had ended, but not without claiming 3 lives. Brown himself, Ryan Heyman, and his innocent dog. The case served as a chilling reminder of the dangers of unchecked jealousy and the profound responsibility that comes with having access to a firearm and a public platform. The story of Nadara Tapia and Antavius Brown was a somber lesson for the community, a tragic tale that demonstrated how a private conflict, fueled by social media, can have devastating and irreversible consequences. It was a story of a breakup that went horribly wrong, a man who chose violence over peace, an innocent man who paid the ultimate price for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. It was a tragedy that would not soon be forgotten. Perhaps you were carried away by the glimpse of this story. Here's a recap. I want you to remember Nadar Tapias to understand the dangers and patterns of a jealous partner. The tragic story of Antavius Brown begins not with violence, but with a public and digital unraveling. A once private relationship between Brown, a rapper known as Get Brown, and his ex-girlfriend, Nadar Tapia, a podcast host, had come to an end. Tapia, with a calm and finality, had asked Brown to move out, seeking to peacefully close a chapter of her life. She believed the conversation was a private matter, an unspoken final word on their 2-year relationship. However, Brown was not one to process his feelings in silence. His platform was social media, and he used it as both a confessional and a tool for retribution. On Christmas Eve, he took to Facebook, posting a series of ominous and deeply concerning messages. His words were not of sorrow, but of anger and a chilling sense of righteousness, warning his audience that he was willing to go to war and die about it. It was a public and veiled threat that turned their breakup into something far more dangerous. Sensing the danger in his posts, Tapia's mother bravely entered the online fray. She publicly responded to Brown's threats, directly calling him dangerous and alerting the world to her fears for her daughter's safety. This intervention only served to escalate the conflict, validating Brown's need for a public fight. The once private dispute was now a digital battleground for thousands to watch and comment on, drawing in family, friends, and strangers alike. The back and forth continued to build in intensity, moving from written posts to live videos. Both Brown and Tapia went live on Facebook, each presenting their side of the story. Tapia used her platform to stand her ground and assert her independence, while Brown uses to air his feelings of betrayal and rage. The live streams were a public performance of their pain, turning a personal conflict into a form of entertainment for their audience, who were completely unaware of the real-world tragedy that was about to unfold. The private conflict had fully become a public affair, a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. The digital taunts and public accusations created an environment where the line between online drama and real-life violence was dangerously blurred. The breakup that began in a quiet conversation was now a viral sensation, a dramatic prelude to the shocking violence that was about to come. The online rage reached its boiling point on December 28, 2024, when Antavius Brown showed up at Nadar Tapia's apartment. The verbal dispute quickly escalated, and Brown's fury spilled from the digital world into the physical one. With Tapia's children present and watching in horror, Brown drew a firearm and, in a horrifying act of violence, shot Tapia in the leg. The silence was shattered by the gunshot, and the terror began in earnest. In a bizarre and twisted turn of events, Brown, rather than fleeing the scene, forced the wounded Tapia into his car. He drove away from the apartment, a man consumed by rage who was also trying to control the situation. He was taking her to a hospital, a chilling mixture of concern and violence. Tapia, in agonizing pain and terrified for her life and the lives of her children, knew she had to find a way to escape. Her chance came when they arrived at the hospital. As Brown brought her inside, Tapia, with incredible presence of mind, discreetly leaned toward a nurse who was attending to her. In a hushed tone, she confessed that Brown had shot her and was threatening her children. The simple words were a desperate plea for help, a final, courageous act of survival. The nurse, recognizing the gravity of the situation, immediately sprang into action. Without raising suspicion from Brown, she calmly signaled for help and called for police. The quiet urgency of the medical staff sent a clear message, and Brown, sensing his plan was unraveling, made a split-second decision to run. The police were on their way, and his time for escape was running out. He fled the hospital and got into his car, leaving a wounded Tapia behind. The chase was now on. The once private conflict had officially become a public safety issue. The police were in pursuit of a dangerous and armed man, a man whose rage had already caused one shooting and was now threatening to cause more chaos on the public roads. The high-speed pursuit through the streets of Columbia, South Carolina, was a chaotic and terrifying spectacle. Brown, with police cars in relentless pursuit, was not just trying to escape. He was embarking on a chilling, live-streamed final act. He took to Facebook Live once again, broadcasting the chase to his followers and, with a chilling sense of finality, declared his intentions. "Today is the day I die," he told his viewers, turning his pursuit into a suicide mission. The chase came to a horrific end at a busy intersection on Garner's Ferry Road. Brown, in a final act of defiance, ran a red light, showing a complete disregard for human life and the laws of the road. His actions sealed his fate and tragically impacted the life of an innocent man. He collided with a Toyota 4Runner being driven by Ryan Heyman, an ordinary person on his way home, who had no idea he was about to become an innocent victim in a stranger's tragedy. The crash was a deafening, violent explosion of metal and glass. The force of the impact was so catastrophic that it instantly took the lives of Ryan Heyman and his dog. The brutal end to the chase left a scene of total wreckage and devastation, a stark and horrific testament to the consequences of unchecked rage. The police, who had been following the chase, arrived at a scene of unimaginable destruction, a quiet neighborhood shattered by a single, senseless act. In the midst of the wreckage, police made two grim discoveries. They found Ryan Heyman and his dog tragically deceased in their vehicle. Moments later, they found Antavius Brown, who had shot himself in the stomach in a final, desperate act of self-destruction. The man who had been the source of so much chaos and violence was now critically wounded, his life ebbing away amidst the wreckage he had created. Antavius Brown was rushed to the hospital, the same hospital he had fled from just minutes before. Despite medical efforts, his injuries from the self-inflicted gunshot wound, and the crash were too severe. He died at the hospital, his life ending in a final, tragic act of his own choosing. In the end, 3 lives were lost, and a community was left to mourn the loss of an innocent man caught in the crossfire of a deeply personal and public tragedy. Thank you for watching the story of Nadar Tapia and Antavius Brown. This case is a powerful and sobering reminder of the unseen dangers that can erupt from private conflicts. If this story resonated with you, and you want to ensure you never miss a deep dive into stories that matter, we ask for your support. Please consider hitting that subscribe button so you can come back and revisit this and other critical stories that need to be remembered. The more people who know about this case, the more awareness we can create about the dangers of domestic violence and unchecked social media rage. If you believe this story can help others, please like and share this video with your friends and family. Your simple click could be the awareness someone needs. The true value of a story like this lies in the conversations it inspires. We invite you to share your thoughts and feelings in the comments section below. What did you take away from this case? Have you seen similar situations unfold? Your comments can become a valuable space for others to learn from your thoughts and experiences, turning a single tragedy into a powerful lesson for our community. Thank you again for your time and for joining us in remembering this important story.